Hope you guys are doing well today. We are going to continue our talk about toxins. Haven't been able to do as many live streams lately, but I hope you guys are enjoying the podcast. We started a podcast, and right now you can access it a lot of places. It hasn't been picked up on iTunes yet, but it should be there next week. Okay, so I'm staying with this topic of toxins, and have been learning so much lately that I'm going to be sharing with you guys. I mean, I've been learning things about not only metals and chemicals in our environment, but other types of environmental toxins, things like dirty electricity, and I'm looking a lot more into other types of pollution than just chemical pollution. But anyway, today I want to talk to you guys about something that's really a huge problem, and this is the issue of heavy metals in our environment and heavy metal exposure, because heavy metals create a tremendous number of problems for humans, and they promote a lot of different types of disease processes and degeneration of our health. So we want to be aware of this. This is something that you want to understand, and you want to minimize your exposure to it. You also want to understand that these are things that you need to work on removing from your environment and detoxing from your body, removing them from your body, because we're going to talk about some of the negative consequences of these things, but common sources, and really kind of go into it a little bit more in depth. But I hope you guys are doing well. And guys, remember, if you find value in this and you like this, you enjoy these videos, you find that this is helpful, will you please do us a favor and help us spread the word and share this with other people? Help us help others, because so many people are never going to hear this information if we don't share it. So help us out if you can. And if you don't mind, guys, tell me, as we're going through here, just tell me kind of where you're from. I always like to see where you guys are from. We have people from around the world that are on these live streams, and just always interested to know where you guys are from, whether you're in my backyard or you're around the world somewhere. All right, so let's talk about heavy metals. Are they making us sick? Guys, I can tell you for sure that we can check for reactivity to a lot of the metals that I'm going to talk about. And in particular, I mean immune system reactivity. We know that these metals can stimulate the immune system, and the immune system can literally react to them and produce antibodies against them. Okay? So this is really important to know that if you're autoimmune, might your autoimmunity be driven by metal exposure? That's really important to understand, because most people think if they're autoimmune, first of all, they don't realize that there are things that drive and promote the immune response that can promote their autoimmunity. Quite frankly, most conventional doctors are not aware of that either. They don't know the cause. They know that things can promote an immune response, but they don't realize that a lot of these metals, that foods, and that a lot of pathogens can promote and stimulate the immune system and contribute to autoimmunity. And that one of our main strategies to dampen the autoimmune process needs to be to identify these food proteins, the pathogens in our bodies, and then also environmental chemicals and metal reactivity, to identify those and remove them as a strategy to help dampen the autoimmune process. So this is really important to understand, especially if you're autoimmune, and I know a lot of you guys have thyroid problems and a lot of you are autoimmune. A lot of the chemicals we talk about, you may not be autoimmune, but they may be the disruptor or the thing that's creating problems for your body chemistry. So maybe you can't produce enough thyroid hormone, but yet you're not autoimmune. Maybe your TSH is high, but you're not autoimmune. Well, guess what? There are chemicals in our environment that disrupt every step of that physiological process, every step. And guess what? Many of them are not detectable on testing unless you're in a research environment where they're specifically looking for these things. They're just not available commercially, and they're not even in the thought process or the mind of your doctors. And so how many of you have kind of like an unknown cause for thyroid issues? Like they don't know why you have Hashimoto's, or there's not a known cause for your hypothyroidism or your low thyroid function. That's the majority of people. You just look at the major websites that if you search for the cause, what's the cause of hypothyroidism? Primarily unknown. You're going to see that. No known cause. There's a cause for it, it's just not known. And I'm going to tell you that there's tons of literature and research that show us that chemicals definitely contribute to and disrupt your endocrine system, your hormonal system at every step in the physiology, especially thyroid. Lots and lots. Last time I searched, there were 602 studies on endocrine disrupting chemicals and the thyroid. 602 studies. And there are thousands and thousands of environmental and industrial chemicals, many of which we still don't know the effects of. It's really important that you guys understand this. So, heavy metals, are they making us sick? We know that they definitely can. They create a lot of negative side effects. So where are they commonly found? Cigarette smoke is high in metals, guys. Batteries, there's, what are they? Nickel, cadmium batteries, right? So batteries are really important that you recycle those. You don't just throw those in the trash. We do not want this stuff to get into our water and our soil and our environment. Cosmetics. A lot of cosmetics have these chemicals in them. And I've talked to you guys about this before, but in case you don't know, this is your first time maybe seeing this, make sure that you go to right here, EWG, Environmental Working Group. If you would like to give to a good cause, give to these guys. They do tons of research. We need to support them. Okay, but you can search cosmetics, and you can look at your cosmetics and your household supplies. But yeah, for sure, all these things, these heavy metals are in there in some cosmetics. So guys, you've got to be your own advocate. All right, you've got to be your own advocate. My goal is to help you guys be better educated so that you can be an active participant in your healthcare. You're not just going to your doctor and saying, whatever you say, doc, I disagree. You need to be an active participant. You need to be able to give input, get input back, and you need to be able to do that you need to be able to do your own research and dig a little bit for yourself. Help yourself as much as possible. No one's going to help you more than you. I promise you that. And you can spend some time doing some research and learning and really, take your health back. Be your own advocate. Be a better partner with the doctor that you're working with, okay? So, crystal, believe it or not, crystal, like glassware, it has a heavy amount of these metals inside of it. So that's, when you start looking at this, you realize we get exposed to these things a lot of different places. Automobile emissions is a really, I think one of the highest and the biggest sources of this. So when you're driving down the interstate or you're on the freeway, roll up your windows before you get on the freeway, preferably before you're in all this exhaust. Roll up your windows, hit recirc on your car to recycle the air, so that you've got it up and you've got an in-cabin filter and you're just recirculating the air before you get on the freeway. Because this stuff, if you've got your windows down and you're on the freeway, or you wait until you're on the freeway and then you start smelling all the exhaust and you roll up the windows, you're just recirculating that in your car. Before you get on the freeway, guys, in an area where there's not so much pollution, roll up your windows, hit the recirc on the car, so you're recycling the air in the cabin of the car, the cleaner air, then get on the freeway. You do not have your windows down on the freeway. Automobile emissions, it's a real problem, guys. So you get exposed to these metals. Paints, inks, and varnish. Okay, so one of the most dangerous and the most common sources of these heavy metals in a less populated area are going to be with auto body shops. Anyone that does painting, any type of paints, is where you're going to get a lot more exposure to this. And there's research where they've checked around like auto body shops, in the ground around there, even in the water in some cases. The EPA, their job is to help prevent some of these exposures, but these places have high amounts of these metals that it's just in the paint, guys. There's research that's been done on people that actually do paint cars, and they have a much higher rate of exposure to these metals. So the paint, ink, and varnishes all contribute to our exposure here. So in a less populated environment, if you're around an auto body shop, these places are much more likely to to have the opportunity, not that they want to do this at all, but to expose the environment and the surrounding area and even the groundwater to some of these problems. Okay, so blue and red porcelain also contain these metals. So you guys might be familiar with cobalt. You've heard of cobalt blue, right? Cobalt blue. What makes it blue? What's the cobalt? What's cobalt? Cobalt's a heavy metal. So blue porcelain has cobalt in it. Might you get the cobalt from the porcelain? Yes. Yeah. So we've got to think about some of the things. Listen, guys, you just have to educate yourself one day at a time and do one thing each day to try to help yourself live a healthier life. Don't be overwhelmed. Do not get into paralysis and not taking action because you're overanalyzing things. One step at a time, make small changes, and they add up to have a cumulative effect. Okay? Don't worry about trying to do everything at once. I understand the desire to want to be healthy. One step at a time. Other foods. Foods are huge. I underline foods because this is how we as humans destroy our environment and how we pollute ourselves. So one of the most common sources of these metals, and I hope my buddy Randy hops on here. I don't know if you're on here, Randy. I can't see you right now. But he's a farmer. But in farming, pesticides and fertilizers are used quite a bit, obviously, and they have higher levels of heavy metals in them. So when they fertilize and they put pesticides on the crop, it gets into the soil right here, the soil. When it's in the soil, the plants take that up. And they find that if they sample the soil where a lot of pesticides and fertilizers are used, guess what they find? High levels of the nickel, of a lot of these metals. So what ends up happening is you're getting it in your vegetables and your food. Do you see why trying to get or raising your own food or buying locally from someone that you can talk to about these things or buying organic foods are important? Because we've got to reduce our exposure to this stuff, guys. So it's, farmers, there was a research study that was done, and they actually showed that farmers had much higher levels, especially, so if they used pesticides and they used fertilizers, they had higher levels than other people because they were working with these metals. Just like the painters and people that worked in like auto body shops, they had higher levels because they were occupationally they're exposed to it. So really, really important stuff. So what are some of the different problems that you'll see associated with these issues? So metabolic disorders, which is just a huge umbrella term for a lot of different types of problems with metabolism. Mitochondrial dysfunction. What in the world do you guys, some of you are going to know, but a lot of you aren't, what a mitochondria is. Mitochondrial dysfunction. Guys, when we talk about energy production, which if I had to say what is the most common complaint that I hear and that I get every day working with people, talking to people from around the world, online, what is the most common complaint? Low energy. Fatigue is probably the most common complaint. So, or obesity, weight gain problems, low energy brain fog. So every cell in your body has different things inside of it that allow it to function. Okay, we might call these things organelles. Okay, but the cell has these different working pieces, right? So one of the working pieces of the cell is actually something called a mitochondria. The mitochondria is actually how you produce energy. Okay, if the mitochondria don't work well, you don't produce very much energy, and therefore you will have problems with energy levels. How would that manifest symptomatically? Fatigue, absolutely. Weight gain, yes. Brain fog, yes. Those are all possible things that can occur. Mitochondrial dysfunction. So if your mitochondria, the thing in the cell that produces the energy, is dysfunctional, if it's uncoupled, which is a term that will be used, and it can't produce energy, do you think you're going to have good energy levels? Not a good chance. Do you think you're going to be overweight? Yeah, there's a good chance you're going to be overweight. Do you think that you might have brain fog? There's a good chance you're going to have brain fog. Do you think you might be labeled with something like chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia? Yeah, you're going to be much more likely to be labeled with those diagnoses. But at the root of it, it's mitochondrial dysfunction. Like when we go through detoxification, one of our focuses is to improve mitochondrial function. Okay, we've got to focus on improving the cellular energy production. And we do that by trying to remove a lot of these metals and chemicals from our bodies, from our environment. Okay, we've got to do that. You've got to do this. And so it's a lot more than just, hey, is my thyroid hormone level normal? Yeah, that's relevant, that's important, but are you why is it low in the first place? You've got to look at root driving processes in combination with doing some things in the short term to support your physiology. Like, so if you're hypothyroid, yeah, take a thyroid hormone replacement. Obviously, you need thyroid hormone. But why is it low? What's driving it low? If you're autoimmune, what's driving the autoimmunity? Okay, so we've got to consider these things. Immune system problems. Immune system problems. Okay, how many people watching this and that follow me have immune system problems? Like the majority of us, right? The majority of the people, because we're dealing with autoimmune conditions. A lot of us are dealing with autoimmunity. And so immune system dysregulation. Metals. So does that sound like that could be us? Yes, absolutely. What about, so in developing individuals, especially children, decreased intellectual capacity. So it has the capacity to decrease our ability for development, neurological development, kidney damage, and many, many other problems. There's a laundry list. I mean, a huge list of problems that these heavy metals contribute to. So the main thing to keep in mind here is that there are side effects to this. This is everywhere in our environment, and especially if you already have symptoms, some of these symptoms, then you need to be looking at the root drivers of the process. One of the most important things that I'm finding is that we need to be actively focusing on removing these things from our environment and working to support our body's ability to eliminate them so that our physiology can work optimally and normally. If we don't do that, we're oftentimes chasing symptoms. So, lately I've been focusing a lot on detoxification programs, because this is just one of many, 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 actually thousands of chemicals and ways that our bodies can be poisoned by the environment and by things in our environment. So we've got to take an active, we've got to be active in trying to improve our health. So what I've done is, we're using like a detoxification program right now, but removing sources is a really important first step that you guys can do without doing anything else, right? Without doing any kind of program. But if you're interested in like how I'm working with and trying to help people detoxify their bodies and their environment, you can go to nomoretoxicbody.com and you can actually register for our next webinar, which is going to be July 13th. Now, as some of you guys know, we have a detoxification program, but I do not know on July 13th if we're going to have, it might just be informational, like an informational webinar that we have. We may have another class enrollment. We just finished an enrollment period for our program. We may have another enrollment, we may not. It just really depends on how on how things are going with that. We may not take another class on a monthly basis, so it might be 2 months or 3 months if we do that. But you can go to No More Toxic Body and you can register for the webinar where I go through in detail a ton of information on this, detoxification approaches and things that we're doing. But if you're stuck and you feel like you need some help and you just need someone to help you put this together, you want to get more, results faster and try to have someone help you investigate this right now, then you might be interested in, and you might be a candidate for distance consulting, because I do work with 2 to about 4 people per month around the world doing distance consulting. You can go to drbradshuk.com and you can click on application for care and you can learn about what it's like to and what how we work with people around the world through distance consulting. So we help people with testing and trying to just investigate what's going on to put together a plan and a strategy to help you get your health back or get you as healthy as possible. So anyway, guys, I hope this has helped you to better understand heavy metals and a lot of the problems, just conceptually that we're dealing with in this modern environment and world that we live in. It's there's a lot of problems, but there's also a lot of solutions. You just remember, you got to learn to be your own advocate. Just change one thing at a time. If you see something here that may be contributing to your problems, if you haven't investigated cosmetics, go to EWG. It's a simple place to start. It's a really, really important thing. One step at a time. My goal is to change one person's life so that will impact their family, that will impact their community, and ultimately the world. So my goal is one person at a time. I'm just trying to reach to you guys one person at a time. We can make a difference. We can make a big, big change. Okay, so that's my goal, and I hope this helps you guys out. If you guys have any questions, please do let me know. Post your questions and comments here and we'll try to get back to you as soon as we can, okay? But appreciate you guys so much. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day, and I look forward to talking to you again soon. So thank you. Hey guys, Dr. Shook, thank you for viewing our videos. I hope they help you out. If you want to, just subscribe to our channel somewhere here. You can watch a video that YouTube's actually selected for you, so hopefully it'll help you out. If you need any other information or resources, just look in the description. We've got links to our website, to our 9 lab test guidebook, and everything else that we do. I really appreciate you, and I hope you guys have a great